Good afternoon, traditions, and this is again Teacher Anna, your learning partner. So, today we are going to talk about the next lesson of unit number 7, and this is about Hinduism. So, tapos na ang ating mental health break. So, ngayon, let's try to know about our next lesson, which is in the unit number 7, which is entitled Hinduism. So, let's try to know more about Hinduism, guys. So, for our intended learning outcomes or ILOs, so at the end of the unit, guys, you are expected to first identify basic beliefs contained in the Vedas. So, we need also to explain the spread of Hinduism from India to the rest of the world. Yeah, so hindi lang sa India lang talaga si Hinduism, guys. So, a lot of uh, countries are also experiencing or having the religion which is the Hinduism. So let's try to know. And then distinguish various schools of thought within Hinduism. So, so as for the introduction, guys, always remember that Hinduism is by many accounts the oldest religion in the world. So, due to its origins in Vedic beliefs dating as far back as the 1500s, that is before Christ. The religion has no founder. So, walang founder si Hinduism. So, and is a synthesis of many different Indian religious traditions. So, synthesis na siya. Kumbaga mo siya ang umbrella sa mga religion sa India. The religion walks and won in competition with Jainism and Buddhism throughout Indian history. Before seeing a huge resurgence after the medieval period, thereafter it became the dominant religion on the Indian subcontinent. So itong Hinduism, guys, this is a dominant religion that exists in India. So meaning halos sila tanan or halos the all or almost all of the population of India is experiencing or having the religion which is Hinduism. So kung dili siya Hinduism daw, we also have Buddhism. Pero umbrella lang gihapon sa Hinduism si Buddhism. So thereafter, it became the dominant religion on Indian subcontinent. And then Hinduism is one of the most geographical concentrated of the major world religions of the world's 1.12 billion Hindus. And 1.07 billion live in India and Nepal. So even in Nepal, guys, there are also some Buddhism there, and they also exercise Hinduism. So the sheer number of practitioners, however, makes Hinduism the world's third largest religion. Tungod kay daghan kaayong naga-practice ani nga religion, si Hinduism is the third largest religion. Okay? Hinduism is the third largest religion. And then, to know more about Hinduism, it is also uh, well, for Hindus, guys, the origins of their tradition are far back in the mist of time. Indian culture is much less worried about origins. Unlike the West, which until recently believed the world was created only 6,000 years ago. So para sa ilaha, ang kalibutan daw, gi-create lang ni siya around 6,000 years ago. And then, Indian works on a much larger time scale. So, para sa ilaha, they need to work sa taas nga oras. It came as an enormous shock to 19th century missionaries that here was a culture which believed the world was millions of years old. So, para po sila, and then some of them really believe that the world is or the world was millions of years old. So meaning dugay na kaayo ang kalibutan. Millions of years na ang nangagi. In this respect, as in so many others, the wisdom of this great culture was subsequently confirmed by the findings of the contemporary science. So, now, let's have the foundations. So, the foundations of Hindu philosophy, guys, and theology emerged from a creative synthesis of two different cultures. So, nagikan ni siya sa duha ka creative cultures. So, the Indus Valley Civilization and the Aryans, the Indus Valley Civilization flourished from 2500 BCE. So, before Christ, 2500, nag-exist na ni si Indus Valley Civilization. So, meaning, gikan ang Hindu philosophy sa duha ka culture. Ang first kay Indus Valley Civilization, ang ikaduha is the Aryans. So the Indus Valley Civilization flourished from 2500 BCE. It was a highly civilized civilization flourished from 2500 BCE. It was a highly developed culture. So itong si Indus Valley Civilization, guys, kasi marami ng tao dito, and then marami na ding mga natuklasan na mga bagay-bagay, kaya it was a highly developed culture. So, they also have walled cities, two-story buildings, even latrines were all found in this very stable civilization. Stable na day ang kaninga civilization in the old times, which is called the Indus Valley Civilization. The Aryans brought with them many of the gods. So, itong mga Aryans, nagdala sila or sila ang nag-civilize about many gods. Sa daghan daw og mga gods and goddesses. So, from these two were very different traditions. So, di ba, tong pinakauna sa Indus Valley Civilization kay highly developed sila, kay daghan na sila og natuklasan og mga nagamit like two-story buildings, whole cities. So, pero ang Aryans, ang ilahang gidala is kanang daghan kaig mga ginatuuhan na gods and goddesses. So, kani sila basin pag different ang ilang traditions, kani mao ni siya ang dahilan nga nagkaroon ta og Hindu philosophy. So, nag-merge sila, a highly diverse religion has emerged. So, nag-merge sila, and then by that, they have the Hindu philosophy. So let's try to know about the Hindu mind. The following is a very early masterpiece of Hindu spirituality. It comes from the first series of Vedas known as the Samhitas. So these liturgies were probably composed well before 1000 BCE, although some Indian scholars believe that orally they are much older. This already is taken from the Rig Veda, the earliest collections of hymns compiled in the Hindu tradition. So, one o ang kanang isa po sa kanang ginatuuhan, if you have a Hindu mind, so one of the most striking features of any Hindu temple is the impressive range of gods and consorts. So, kung makita nimo diri, like for example, in this picture, if this is the god, oops, so, kung mao ni siya ang ilahang ginatuuhan nga God, mao po ni ilahang mga consorts. Okay? So, it means, dili jud, nindot ang ilahang art dito. It is because it is composed of their gods and consorts. So, dili lang ang God lang nila ang ilahang ginahimuan og statue, pati ang mga consort or katong mga wife sa God. It is certainly true that it creates the impression that there are many gods, so daghan jud siya og gods and goddesses. However, even in Rig Veda, monotheism is starting to emerge. Pero diri sa lugar sa Rig Veda, monotheism sila. So, a popular to make sense of all this diversely is a civil service. So, naay part sa ilaha nga nagatuo og daghan nga gods, pero napoy part sa ilaha nga monotheism na isa lang ka Ginoo ang ilahang ginatuuhan. So, you do not take every problem you have to the president or prime minister. Sa ilaha, dili tanang problema, diretso na dayon sa president o sa prime minister. Instead, there are representative farther down responsible for certain areas of life. Likewise, all the numerous gods and goddesses are responsible for different areas of human life. So naay mga gods and goddesses na responsible for certain areas of human life. Like for example, as wife, unsa ang iyahang ginasunod, as leader, unsa dapat ang sundon. So just like that. So one contacts the appropriate representative of the one all embracing and underlying truth. So now let's go to the worldviews. So we have different worldviews in regards to Hinduism kasi marami kasing under si Hinduism. So Hinduism is the umbrella of the Hinduistic culture or Hindu philosophy. So Hinduism is so diverse that it defies generalization. Yet most Hindus recognize six na philosophical schools of thought. They are all accept the authority of the Vedas, and almost all can trace their origins back to the start of the Common Era. So many of the texts described in this chapter will be interpreted differently depending on which school one is in. So the basic idea shared by the many of the schools will be expounded at length later on. So just in an outline, form six schools. So naatay Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Vinandik. Actually, the 5 and 6 is in the next slide. So we have Vinandik and reincarnation. So, unsa ang nyaya? So, it means analysis or meaning analysis. So, it probably started sometime between the 2nd century BCE and 2nd century CE. So, the central preoccupation is the very nature of reasoning and logic. So, mao ni sila ilahang ginagamit for reasoning and logic. Okay? Now, let's have the Vaisheshika. So, Vaisheshika is school of atomism or individual characteristics, a tradition that stresses the distinction between matter and soul. So, mao po ni si Vaisheshika. So, mao ni siya ang school of atomism, individual characteristic. So, mao ni siya ang nag-stress sa distinction or kalainan sa matter o sa soul. And then the soul must be free itself from matter to attain or attain independence. So para po daw ani nga school of thought, separate gid ang soul and then at the same time it has an independence. So ato ang lawas nagadepend sa ato ang soul. Next is Shankhya. Shankhya is enumeration or count. So, Shankhya, this might well be the oldest of the six schools. So, mo na siya daw ang pinaka-old sa six schools. For the tradition, reality composed of innumerable souls, the souls are entangled matter and release is made possible when the difference between the nature of the soul and the matter is recognized. So, sa ilang tradisyon, ang soul daw nato is entangled with matter. So meaning, it is inside our body. And then, pwede lang ni siya ma-release when we die or when the nature of us die or the matter is recognized or kanang ah, dili na nato dili na makontrol sa ato ang soul ang ato ang body. So that is like for example brain dead. So that's why naay mga soul nga nagalakaw-lakaw kay kasi ang ilaha ding lawas is brain dead. So just like that, mao na ilahang ginatuuhan for Sankhya. We also have yoga. Yoga is a discipline. So this school stresses the systematic of the Vedic text, which are regarded as eternal. It concentrates on Vedic ritual. So katong mga Vedic ritual which can help our body and mind. So mo ni siya ang kani siya nga school which is yoga. Okay? So yoga is not just limited with the exercise that we are doing, but also it is the regarded as eternal and it concentrates rituals. So, na po ni siya mga rituals ang yoga, which is under sa Hinduism. So, we also have Binandek. So, mo ni siya ang number 5. This is the end of knowledge. So, the most significant school. So, mo ni siya ang pinaka-significant, pinaka-importante nga school sa Hinduism and the approach that dominates in this chapter. So this school stresses the great Hindu theme that release is made possible when the self recognizes its underlying into its unity with the cosmic self. So, may balaan og naatay maayo nga ah, lawas kung ang ato ang kalag is with unity with our body and our self. So this school has divided into three farther schools. The first is Advaita Binanda. So gidivide din siya og tulo ka school. So ang first is the Advaita Binanda, which is linked with the teaching of the ninth century thinker Shankara. He taught strict non-dualism. So sa ning non-dualism, it means everything is Brahman, the cosmic self. Okay? So, kita tanan na atay cosmic self. And then the second school is the Vishesh Advaita. So, this is developed from the teaching of 11th century thinking Ramanoha. So, gibuhat ni Ramanoha, which is the school of Vishesh Advaita. And the third one is the worship and love of God, which much more important for Ramanoha. So, katong gibuhat ni Ramanoha nga school of thought is much kana naga-focus siya sa worship and love of God. And then, the last one is Dvaita, was inspired by 13th century thinker Madhva. This was an overly dualist system. So, mao na siya, si Vedantec is divided into three schools. We have the Advaita Vinanda, the Vicious Advaita, and the Dvaita. Now, let's go to the sixth. So, the sixth is reincarnation. So, para sa mga Western life or Western nga tao, we really believe that you only live once, YOLO. Yeah, we only live once. Pero para sa ilaha, they really believe in reincarnation. So you only live once is an assumption of Western life. However, millions of people in the world disagree. Instead, this is one several possibly numerous lives that we have lived and will live. For the Hindu, the only way to make sense of a tragic death or child death is to believe that the child will live again. So, para dili daw kay sakit, gibuhat daw ni siya nga belief because the tragic or kanang mga pangit nga nahitabo sa una nga panahon, like for example, bata pa kay sayo kay siya namatay. So they really believe na sige lang, ma-reincarnate na gyapon na siya o karoon siya nga maayo nga kinabuhi. So just like that. So the Upanishads witness the truth of reincarnation. So daghan daw og naka-witness sa truth sa reincarnation. Napakita sila yung mga picture sa unang panahon and then it form another same lang gyapon og dagway sa sa mga tao sa unang panahon. So the following reading is taken from Shandogya Upanishad. So, napo ni siya reading, which is entitled Shandogya Upanishad. So the crucial stanza is number 7. So if one behaves the well in this life, so kung naa daw tayo maayo nga kinabuhi for this life or we behave well for this life, then one expects to be reborn into one major castes. So meaning, kanang taas na taog ranggo, enigma, reborn ta. So maybe we will be Brahmin or part of the priestly or you can be a Kshatriya, which is a warrior, or you can be a Vaishya, which is economic. However, those who behave badly, so katudong nagabuhat o dili maayo, might be reborn as a dog. So, pwede ka ma-reborn as a dog kung wala ka nagbuhat og maayo. Or ma-reborn as a pig. So, this is the law of karma. Karma is the moral law of the universe. So, it explains why people are born with so many opportunities and advantages in life. So, one chooses his or her family instead. These things are given. If one does not believe in reincarnation and karma, one has two alternative explanations for innate skills that family and birth give. So the first appeal to the sovereignty of God and the second chance. So kasi nagapaniwala sila sa second chance, karma. So that's why they also believe in reincarnation. So, gikan sa ano, kung maay ka nga tao, ma-reborn ka as in a very good family, in kanang swerte kaay ka, and you have a lot of advantages. Pero kung naging masama ka nga tao, para sa ilang religion, they really believe that you can be an animal in the future. So, pwede ka may mong snake, may mong isda, may mong kabayo, may mong iro, kung dili maayo ang imuhang batasan. Now let's go to the devotion in Hinduism. So, unsa ni ang devotion sa Hinduism? So, probably guys, the best known text in Hinduism is the Bhagavad Gita. So, mo ni siya ang ilahang ginabasa. Kumbaga, kung sa ato is Bible, sa ilaha is Bhagavad Gita. It is the most important text for the devotees of Krishna, who in later Hindu theology was described as an incarnation or avatar of Vishnu. So different communities in India, guys, identify with different gods. So lahi-lahi nga community, they also identify different gods. The two most popular movements are Krishna and Shiva. Both demand devotion as the best way to obtain moksha or release. So there are some marvelous stories about Krishna. So as a baby daw, Adeponis became a nurse and tried to kill him with poison on her breast. As a child, he enjoyed playing tricks and jokes, and as a young man, he used his good looks to attract the young girls. But here in Geta, we see Krishna, the god, instruct his pupil Arjuna. The scene is a great battle. So Arjuna is torn between his castle or caste duty to kill the enemies of his people and a fellow feeling with his opponents. Krishna insists that one must do one's caste study. So, the Geta is central to a strand of Hindu devotion. So, kanidang ginatawag nila Geta, mao ni siya ang pinakasentro sa strand sa Hindu devotion. Di ba kita naputay devotion like we read the Bible, we believe the Bible, and then we uh, kanang ato ang gina deeply understand and apply the Bible in the real life. So sa ilahapod, ang ilahang ginaanuhan is ang Bhagavad Gita. Mao na ang ilahang text na ginabasa. And then, the Gita is central to a strand of Hindu devotion. So, mao ni siya ang, kumbaga sa ato ang central is the Bible, sa ilaha is the Gita. And then Krishna embraces all the powers of the other gods, is identified with Brahman. For love of Krishna, one can obtain moksha or liberation. So para sa tuwa, si God the Father and then Jesus. So sa ilaha is si Krishna. Kung higugmaon nimo sa ilaha si Krishna, magkaroon ka og liberation or freedom. At points like this, it seems as if Hinduism is most theistic, that is not polytheistic, believing in many gods, but theistic, believing in a personal God. So meaning kung kinsa to imo ang personal na Ginoo, mo to ima ang mas ginatuohan nimo. Now let's go to the institution and rituals. So the central to the traditional Hindu tradition is the notion of sacrifice. So para gid sa ilaha, you need to sacrifice. So right back to the merging of the two great cultures that make up the Hindu tradition, sacrifice is embedded. So both the Hindus' Valley civilization of 1500s BCE and the Aryan invaders had an interest in controlling nature and the world through the use of ritual. So para makontrol daw nila ang kalibutan, ilahang ginagamitan og ritual. So the next reading is taken from some of the earliest hymns of Hinduism, the Rig Veda. So this is a celebration of praise to speech. So katupod ilahang mga nga hymns of Hinduism, and then this is also called the Rig Veda. So kani pud sila ang ilahang ginagamit as celebration of praise to speech. So one of the ideas lying behind this text is the notion that the very words of the ritual describe the actual sounds of reality. So the Sanskrit words are sounds that reality make itself. So medyo lisod sabton ang ilahang kuan na rituals and institution, but ang very basic ani is they have a lot of sacrifices. Now let's go to the caste system. So mo ni siya ang caste system, guys. So one of the most criticized features of Hinduism is the caste system. So a lot of people ang dili ganahan sa caste system. And then Westerners, even the mga Westerners countries find the area abhorrent. The idea that birth determines status and that the entire society ought to work together to help the elite gain liberation seems almost incomprehensible to the liberal and secular spirit of the West. Kasi, diba sa West is like, kana kita tanan hatagan taog freedom. So kita tanan kung sa ma-experience basin pagdato ka or pobre, you can experience freedom. However, Hindus look at the world very differently. Pero sa ilaha, it's very different. So kung sa imuhang na or kinsa imong mama ug papa mo na siya imuhang status. If both mother and father are servants, so because you are born with them, so you are also servant. So just like that. So in the Hymn of Man is one of the hymns in the Rig Veda. We find one of the earliest speculation as to the origin of the four castes. In Hinduism, there is no agreed theory of creation. In some strands, the world was a byproduct of a cosmic battle. It is a result of a sacrifice. So in this hymn, the gods create the world by taking apart the great man. So the ilahi nila to mga great man or the Purosa. So these are the giant. This giant is the victim in a sacrifice. So this reading shows that right from the creation, the four classes or the castes were formed. So natay four classes. And then, pero diri sa ko ang na-research na lang siya nadungag nga isa. Because in the new world, nana sila untouchables or street cleaners. So, pero, sa ilaha jud is it has just four. Okay? So, it is interesting to note that unlike the Western, or where economic activity is considered the most of all social activities, in Hinduism, it is a clear second to the spiritual and political dimensions of a society. So, clear kaayo sa ilahano in Hinduism. So, economic activity should never be an end itself. Instead, it ought to work for the benefit of the spiritual needs of a society. So, para magkaroon og spiritual needs, so nagatrabaho or na ang ilahang economic is ginabuo nila tungod sa panginahanglanon sa ilahang upper priests, silang rulers. So, ginauna nila og hatag ang priest or the academics, and then the Kshatriyas, which are the rulers or administrators, and then the warriors. And then under sa ilaha is nasa lower ang Vishyas. They are part artisans, tradesmen, farmers, and merchants. And they are the lower one or nasa feet they are shudras or they are the manual laborers. And then sa Baguna is the Dalits. They are the untouchables or the street cleaners. So diri guys, we have the Aryans and non-Aryans. So sa upat, we have the white which is the Aryans. So muna sila ang mga higher ranking nga tao in Hinduism. So we have the priests. Next is the Kshatriyas which is the warriors. So gikan dito ganina ang nadungag lang is ang Dalits. Okay? And then Vaishyas. Some Vaishyas are the herders, farmers, merchants, and craftspeople, while the Sudras are the farm workers, servant, laborers. So, always remember this, guys. These are the four part of the caste system. Okay? Now let's go to the rule of women. So, unsa day ang rule of women in Hinduism? So, Indian society, guys, sets a high premium on order. Children must obey their parents. Para sa ilaha, ang mga bata dapat i-obey jud nila ilahang parents. The elderly should be honored. And wives must play their appropriate rules. Without this order, society would break down. So, the first extra captures the traditional picture. So the laws of Mano insist that a woman must never be independent. So dapat daw ang babae dapat dili mahimong independent. As a child, she is dependent on her father. As a wife, she is dependent on his husband. Kung bata pa sila, they are very dependent on their father, and then kung maminyo na, they should depend on their husband. As an old lady, she is dependent on her son. So kung matigulang na, they should depend on their sons. So the first extract is taken from the Laws of Manu, the duties of a woman. So this stress on the duties of the women is complemented elsewhere in the Laws of Manu. With an equal stress on the value of women, the next reading suggests that women as faithful wives gain tremendous power. It is enough to stop the movement of the heavens. A different picture of women emerges in one of the stories about Lord Krishna. So these stories about Krishna operate in two different levels on one hand. So we have a childish prank where the village girls have their clothes stolen while swimming. It is an it is almost erotic. On the other hand, we have the girls being tricked into exposing their nakedness and having an authentic encounter with the Lord. So mao ni sila ang ilahang ginatuuhan. So sa napod sa ilahan napod sila gara-gara like for example kung maligo ang mga babae pangkawato nila ang ano ang sanina sa babae. And then in the story weaves together a celebration of sexuality and spirituality. It shocks the prodigy of the West because many religious traditions set sexuality and spirituality against each other. So, however, the strand of Hinduism would want to argue that an encounter with one's Lord demands exactly uh, the same intimacy as the sexual act. It is wrong to turn sexuality into something wicked and sinful. So, mali sa ilaha nga ang sexuality mahimong wicked and sinful. It is part of their ang sexuality, part of their spirituality. And then for Hindu, this story causes no embarrassment. Sexuality can be celebrated, and the passion it generates is comparable to the passion God is demanding for us. So para sa ilaha, sexuality daw is also the same with the passion na imuhang ginaserve ang Ginoo or passion nga kanang ginademand sa ilahang Ginoo. Now, let's have the modern expression. So, these are the modern expression of Mahatma Gandhi. So, it is impossible to separate Hinduism and India. What unites all Hindus is the achievement of Indian society. So, lisod jud daw kaayo nga walaon ang Hinduism sa India. So, kasi apil lang ni sa ilahang culture, ug mo po ni siya ang dahilan nga nagka-unite sila. In the 20th century, guys, Hindu theology was an important component in the movement for Indian interdependence. Several notable theological innovators emerged in this period. So, for example, si Ravendranath Tagore, which was born on 1861 until and died in 1941, wanted to see Indians discover the resources of their traditions and use them for individual creativity. However, the best known theological and political innovators was Mahatma Gandhi. So, si Mahatma Gandhi guys, bright kay siya no kasi he is also dili lang siya ang theological generator of Hinduism but also a political innovator in India. So he is also known as Mohandas Gandhi. So Mohandas Gandhi was trained as a lawyer in England. So after working for a time in South Africa, he returned to India. He is inspired by Bhagavad Gita. Di ba si Gita or itong Bhagavad Gita is parang Bible. So kasi pinag-aralan niya to, na-inspire siya nito. And then, giant Hindu notion of ahimsa or non-injury. So he fought a campaign against the British. He believed that non-violent passive resistance would shame them into relinquishing power. So, para po sa iyahan no, basing pag dili ta mo gamit og violence, they can be freed. Kasi pwede nila mapaulawan ang mga British people with their works with the use of the Bhagavad Gita or ilahang Bible and then the Jain Hindu. Kasi very violent man sila nga time ang mga British. So the first reading is a reflection on the trials of Hinduism. And then here, Gandhi explicitly links the religion. So, link niya ang religion, which is the Hinduism, with the faith of the people, which is in India. He identified three trials. So, the first was largely a reformation from within, the much needed corrective of the Buddha. The second and the third, however, are invasions from without. Islam and Christianity came with political power to propagate their messages. So present-day Hindu or fundamentalists are opposed to these invasions and want to resist the integration of Hindu identity with these other traditions. So however though, Gandhi offers a different and more mainstream approach. So in this reading, he is generous and understanding. He sets out the fundamental creed of Hinduism. He affirms what is good in these other traditions and wants to resist all that is mistaken. So katong mga mali nga gipambuhat, so dapat mahibalan nila as that is a mistake. So ma-affirm nila kung maayo ilang ginabuhat in the use of their Bible, which is Bhagavad Gita. Okay? So, kung makita nimo diri bright jud kayo si Mahatma Gandhi no kasi bihira lamang gud kayo ang mga tao nga kung mubasa lang they can learn a lot and i-apply ni nila sa real life jud nga with the real jud ba nga nindot nga pagkasabot ana sa ilahang gibasa. So, that's why Mahatma Gandhi is really gud siya, gina-admire gud siya with a lot of philosophers. Kasi maganda yung pamamalakad niya at saka nasabtan jud niya iyang gibasa about Bhagavad Gita. And then i-apply niya sa iyahang country which is also a very good ideal nga dapat nato sundon. So that would be all, guys, for our Unit 7 topic, which is Hinduism. So please read and review your lesson. Try also to practice these words and research more about Hinduism. So let's go now to your assessment. Always remember to make your parents proud and do your best, Traditions. Have a great day. See you.